Greetings, gang. All right, it's been a long time since we've done one of these videos. I think it's probably been, 6 months since the last time we did any sort of Mrs. P or me recipe. Has a lot to do with the fact of you don't harvest a whole lot of food in the wintertime. So, as I'm coming to the end, and some of you guys may already be done, some of you guys may be just starting with this. Some of your harvest is starting to come in, and we need to put it up, okay? So what I'm going to show you today is another way to store your cabbage. Hopefully you guys grow cabbage. I'll give you a little sidebar note on cabbage. Chances are you're not going to be able to grow oranges unless you live in Florida or desert Southwest or something like that. Do you realize that 1 cup of cabbage, 1 cup of raw shredded cabbage, coleslaw, whatever it would be, has 190% of the U.S. daily recommended allowance of vitamin C. Okay, so yes, eating cabbage is very healthy for you. Great in fiber, great in potassium, vitamin C, as I said, easy to grow. It's a cancer preventer. It's a headache remedy. It's also a hangover remedy for anybody if you want to know that, okay? Fermented sauerkraut is great for getting rid of a hangover. Grow cabbage. It's probably too late this year for the spring, but you'll be ready to plant a fall crop too, guys. It's a cold weather crop, so around here I'll be planting it again around the 1st of August so I can harvest it somewhere around the beginning of November. Just saying. So I went out last night and did some harvesting and got myself a whole bunch of good heads of cabbage. Still got probably 8 or 10 left in the ground that aren't ready yet, but I got myself half a dozen of these. Mrs. P has already taken a lot of the other stuff we've made and made kimchi out of it, which we've been eating, but I want something to put up too. So I'm going to show you a recipe for Golumpki, okay, or as the Russians call it, Golubtsi. So we kind of took her recipe and my recipe and kind of put it together, and it was really good. If you don't know what those are, guys, this is stuffed cabbage, okay? The little cabbage rolls you get that's stuffed with meat and rice and covered in tomato sauce, absolutely freaking delicious. But I'm going to show you how to make it real easy. That's why it's called lazy Golubtsi or lazy Golumpki, and how to can it, okay? So here's what you need. This is not difficult. You should have all of this in your preps or in your garden. Cabbage. I went out this morning and harvested some onions. Okay, so we got that. You need ground beef. I'll give you a little sidebar on this one. The original Golumpki, what they ate it with, is basically a Polish food. It was made with pigeon, okay? And get this, decades, centuries ago, pigeon was an expensive meat. Only the elites ate it. So the Poles would make it with something like buckwheat instead. I don't think at this point in our lives, the way the world is as of yet, we want to be eating pigeon, so we'll stick to ground beef. But you could make it with ground pork or ground turkey or ground chicken or anything. There's a lot of different ways to do it. We're going to do ground beef. We need a prepper staple, rice. And yes, I know there's going to be a whole bunch of people that say, you can't can rice. Right, okay, go back and watch my video on stuffed peppers from last year. None of them went bad. We ate them all. Mrs. P's still alive, I'm still alive, and neither one of us were in the hospital. If you do it right, you can can rice. Okay. And the last thing you're going to need is tomato sauce. Okay. You can use a jar of ragu, whatever you want to be, something like that. Last year, I showed you guys how to make homemade tomato sauce out of my tomatoes. So I'm using last year's version. Yeah, I canned this July of last year. Okay, this is kind of a spaghetti sauce that I made, so there's some spices in there. You can make it spicy, you can make it not spicy, you can use straight tomatoes, whatever. There's a lot of customization you can do for this recipe. So let's get into how to make this. This is not difficult at all. Guys, this is something if you don't cook, even you can do. So First thing I'm going to do is chop up my onions. I'm going to make I'll give you an idea what I'm going to make here. I'm going to try to make 2 canners full. So I've got 6 heads of cabbage, 4 pounds of ground beef, 3 onions, 2 quarts of spaghetti sauce, and rice. You can kind of go wherever you want, but I'm going to use about a cup of rice for all of this. A good ratio for what we use is a quarter cup of rice per pound of meat. So first thing I'm going to do is chop up my onions, and I'm going to very lightly soften them up in some butter. So there's the first step. I'm going to go do that. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back from doing that. You didn't need me to see me tears, angry onions, as Mrs. P calls them. But chopped up my onions and lightly sauteed them just so they're shiny. That's as far as you want to go. You don't want to cook them down or anything like that. You might get a tinge of the brown on the onions. That's it. I mean, I probably had them on the stove for a minute. Okay. A big mixing bowl. I'm going to make this in 4 batches, so I'm not trying to move a 4-pound ball of meat. Okay. So I want to put about a quarter of my onions in my bowl. Okay. We'll do that. I want to take 1 pound of raw ground beef. This is a raw pack, okay? Slice that open, and it goes. Rice, okay? Cut this open. And I want to use a quarter cup of rice. Like I said, you can add more or less. Some people like it with more rice. Some people like it with less. I find for canning, a quarter cup per pound is about best. So this is a 1/3 cup measuring, so I'm a little bit less. So that's in, okay? This is how difficult this is, guys. You know me, I'm not gonna give you crazy difficult recipes. All right, so I'm gonna move that in front of me, and we're gonna go to the star of the show, the cabbage. Now, this is where it's called lazy Golubtsi. Y'all know if you were making it, okay, and I washed that off there, brush it off, I already washed them. You would be taking a leaf and putting your stuffing in and roll it up, okay? So you had like a little burrito. That's not gonna can that well, all right? So what we wanna do is we're gonna take our cabbage, I'm back to using that. This is the biggest head I have, okay? And I am going to chop this up into pieces, all right? You don't need them to be super small pieces, but you don't want them overly big, all right? So you can see what I'm getting there is roughly 1.5 inch square pieces. And I'm gonna throw that all in my bowl. So all right, this is why you do this in sections, not everything all at once, why I didn't dump all my onions in. Remember, here's that other portion of the cabbage. That bowl is full. So now I've got to get in here and mix all that meat and rice and onion and cabbage all together. So this is going to take me a few minutes. I'll only get that done. All right, so now I've mixed everything together. It took me a couple of minutes. And you notice how everything's kind of shrunk down, which is good. This is what you're expecting, but I've still got pretty much a full bowl here. Canning jars, wide mouth, be a hell of a lot easier, all right? So all we're gonna do, just like anything else canning, okay, we're going to pack this all in here the best we can, okay? You want it a little firm, but not tight. I'll show you why in just a second, okay? And we want to come up to maybe leaving about an inch headspace. So there's what we got. All right. Reason why we want it firm but not tight is now we want to take our tomato sauce and we want to get this in. And that'll work its way down a little bit. We're going to bring this up to the point of having about a 1/2 inch headspace. Don't worry about getting it all the way down just as yet. As it cooks, it's going to mix all together, but you want to debubble, if you will, a little bit as you're going along and keep adding to it. And you'll have a pretty good idea when it's down where it's going to go. All right, put in just a touch more. Okay, as you can see, I've used almost 1/2 quart of sauce in there. So there is that part. Let me, oh, one thing I forgot. Salt. Yes, let's not forget salt. Plain salt, guys. Use canning salt or plain salt. Do not use iodized salt, all right? But again, salt to taste. I'm going to want a little bit of salt in there. We'll just stir it just a touch. No big deal. All right, so let me do a bunch more. Okay, so now I've got all 7 filled, my first batch. Yes, once I got my canning tools out, should have done that in the first place. I got my funnel, it was a lot easier to fill. And once I debubbled, you can see I got the sauce much better down into the solids, if you will. To give you an idea, just if you're trying to make this yourself, what it took me to make 7 quarts: 2 heads of cabbage, 2 pounds of ground beef, 3.5 jars of spaghetti sauce, 3.5 quarts of spaghetti sauce, okay? And then you guys saw the onions and how much I use in rice and stuff like that. But don't think this is just, oh, a couple of little things and you're gonna have it. It actually takes quite a bit of material to get in here. So now we're this far. Next step, of course, always clean your rims, okay? Some people like just using water. I prefer using vinegar. Get them all nice and clean, okay? Don't want anything risking the lids not sealing. So we'll do a couple of those. Just at least do the 3 in front of me so I can knock these out real quick. Get my lids all nice and clean. Make sure I didn't miss anything, because when you're recording a video on this, it takes twice as long, guys. And so, of course, you know, you get a little bit of dry tomato sauce or something on the top, so cleaning it well. Lid, just like anything else, finger tight. Put the other 2 on here so I don't forget which ones I did. Down we go. And down we go. All right. So my next step is to can this. And as you guys know, we did this raw pack. So this is 4 quarts, 90 minutes pressure canning. If you're doing pints, be 75. But so I'm going to get these in. I'll see you in a couple hours. All right, and there you go. There's 7 jars of lazy Golumpki, and there's 7 more in there. So yeah, 14 meals off of what I use. 4 heads of cabbage, 4 pounds of ground beef, and a cup of rice, and some tomato sauce I made last year, a couple onions out of the garden. There you go. There's the latest cooking with Mrs. Pinball. Hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Pinball.